Now let me, actually today I left my specs at the guest house, so I am having some problem reading this. No, I can read it. I am harding it. No, no problem. Sample term, I said, on the basis of laws of repeated observations and so on. So the descriptive statistics refers to the measurement and enumeration of the characteristics of population, people, property, and so on. On the other hand, theoretical or probability statistics refers to the methods used to infer from the information about a sample to information about the population. You know that all this information that will go. For instance, the example that I gave you, that I don't interview or I don't collect information from all the students, I only collect information from 10 students. Then I said that the income, the family background, let us say the income group from which these people have come is between this to this, but I attach a probability. That there is a probability attached to this statement. That this statement is true, let us say, in 80 cases out of 100, or it is true in 90 cases out of 100. So, when I say it is true in 90 cases of 100, it is a strongly probable. When I say it is 80 cases of 100, so these kind of inferences come with a probability statement. That is because you cannot say that this is true. Absolutely true. You know, for instance, now you are very much familiar, because every time you see every other day the election forecast. For instance, they say this party will win, this party will win so many seats, and this party will win so many seats. And then they attach a probability kind of thing, isn't it? They say, well, there are certain kind of conditions, if this means conditions are made, and so on and so forth. But basically the probability statements are that how strong is your prediction. When I say that, let us say that this participant of this class or this workshop come from income group of monthly income group of 1 lakh to 1,50,000, let us say. Now, there could be some who would be above that, there could be some who would be below this, but I am saying that this, attaching a probability to this, I am saying that this is, there is a probability statement attached to this. So, what is statistics refers to methods. Alright. Another important distinction is between descriptive statistics and explanatory or relational statistics. The second distinction is better labeled as what is called as univariate versus multivariate kind of statistics. That is a univariate thing. For instance, I want to know what is the average income, or I want to know what is the average education. There is one variable that I am kind of doing. In a multivariate, I want to know that age versus kind of education. So it is a two variable. I know that what is the age group and what is the educational achievement of the group. So it is two variables. Now I can make it that what is age versus education depending upon the family background. Now my assumption is that those who come from well-off family will have better education, better chances of education. So age versus education depending upon what is the family income. So it becomes three variables. So it becomes a multivariate kind of analysis. So there are all measures for these kind of univariate and multivariate analysis, and you will learn this. I saw this program, so I am not going into this. In my next lecture, I will tell you something about that also. But as I said, that as mentioned before, I have said 19th century statisticians like Quantitative made extensive use of descriptive statistics and sought to construct an empirical science of society. The study of moral or social facts and the social conditions that cause them. These are the basic ideas. Yet, in general, Quetelet and other administrators and reformers responsible for gathering descriptive social statistics during the 19th century limited themselves to immediate practical concerns. As I said, that these were the governmentality kind of questions, and did not construct general theory of history about the social processes they documented so comprehensively. Conversely, social philosophers like Bose and Spencer, if they used evidence at all, relied on comparative and historical methods in which qualitative material from historical and anthropological sources were used to arrange societies in order of progression. You know this, that they arrange the society. They never relied on the quantitative techniques, but they relied on historical and comparative methods to this thing. The gulf between them was great. See the way of doing, analyzing society, way of understanding the society. On the one hand, you can have a collection of data and so on and so forth. On the other hand, you can have other methods like qualitative or historical method to understand what the society is like. So what I'm saying is that gulf between them was great. Indeed, it was Quetelet's use of social physics, as I said, to describe his statistical science that led Quetelet to abandon that term in favor of sociology, in an effort to distance his highest positive science from mere statistics. So he was trying to say that statistics is not a branch of knowledge, it is just a tool to analyze this. And Durkheim's Durkheim, you know, Durkheim also used quantitative method in his book Suicide, if you know. Quetelet's notion of the average man, Quetelet said average man, as being an inadequate indicator of social forces. Durkheim said that this average man is an inadequate, because it confused the average of the properties of society's component individuals with the emergent properties of the collectivity. So what I am saying is, or what Durkheim is saying, that emergent properties of the connectivity is different from the average gathered by adding individual property. Understand what I am saying? What we are saying, that collective is, if you add individual, it doesn't become a collective. Collective is something above the properties of the individual. That is what I am trying to say. Like, for instance, let us say that there is a there are demonstrations against rape happening in Delhi. Now there are collectivities. Students have gone and they are kind of protesting, agitating, kind of police arresting them, beaten by police and so on and so forth. This is a collectivity which is protesting. Alright? This property of this, you cannot, that what they are doing, you cannot understand it by adding individual. That is what I am saying. That this collectivity has a different kind of property than the individual properties. So in sociology, we have a concept of community. We often talk about community, and we say that this is a community kind of ethos, this is a community practice, this is a community. In India, community is a very kind of a potent kind of a category to understand many things.
Yes. In communication, it has been extremely vulgarized by talking about community in terms of the reach of the signal. So there's a community radio. It's our signal, the range is covered. So that is how they have defined community. It's extremely shocking, actually.
Yes. So the community has kind of certain kind of moral laws, certain is not acceptable to that community. You don't understand what is the problem. But that community, like for instance, Odisha, this mining kind of case where these tribals, the hill where these mining operations that which have been stopped in that, then they say that we worship this hill, as this hill is our God. We worship it. This is a community kind of community practice. Now you cannot understand in terms of individuals. So what statistics does, that is the Durkheim's concept, what statistics does is collect individual properties. Isn't it? I collect your income, his income, this income, and then I say that. But in society there are certain things which are not understood individually in terms of individual. You can only understand as a community, as a collective. That you don't get to know when you do these statistical exercises. Although it was quite common for political arithmeticians and moral statistician to compare measure of different aspects of society and offer explanation of one in terms of other, it was British eugenists. Eugenists, who are eugenists, who formalized the procedures of bivariate and multivariate analysis. Bivariate and multivariate, I will explain. The bivariate were two variable, multivariate. Eugenists. This is very important in the history of quantitative method, because actually the statistical analysis developed from eugenists. Eugenists were those who predicted the quality of children from the quality of parents. It was very popular branch of knowledge in 19th century, eugenics. And if you see the books, 19th century books on sexuality, on how to kind of rear children and so on and so forth, eugenics they called, and eugenics they played a very important role, because they tried quantitatively, they tried to show that if the parents have these kind of properties, only then you have children of that kind of property. Now everyone wants children who should be very bright, who should be not very healthy, who should have very great intelligence and so on and so forth. Eugenics predicted this from the property of the parent. Now, eugenics later they were condemned because hidden in this is a kind of a racist kind of a philosophy. That is why eugenics gradually were kind of condemned by all. Because as you can see that if you want a very fair, child with blue eyes and kind of a beautiful.
I think there was a conversation, gossip probably, about Bernard Shaw and Marilyn Monroe. And Bernard Shaw is not very good looking.
Yes.
So Marilyn Monroe posed this idea that I think Mary will have a fantastic child. But not so says it. The child takes just opposite way than
So that is the but they developed this eugenists developed all this univariate and multivariate analysis. Many of the statistical techniques that we use today were originally developed by the eugenists. Because of this, because they have so in an attempt to measure the degree to which a child inherits the characteristics of its parents, Galton, one of the eugenists, Galton is a very important name in mathematics actually. Galton introduced the correcting coefficient of reversion symbolized by R. You know, now you have got coefficient of correlation, which is R, but this was originally, it was developed by Galton. You are a statistician, so you should know that it is called coefficient of reversion. It was called R, coefficient of reversion R. And by later renamed the coefficient of regression. Reversion is then, it goes back and called coefficient of regression. This soon led him to the notion of the correlation coefficient, or R as he renamed it, the correlation coefficient, to measure the strength of relationship between two characteristics, that is the characteristics of the parent and the characteristics of the child. They were defined and extended by Carl Pearson. He is a big name in statistics. Carl Pearson then kind of reformulated and kind of it is called, there is a Pearson R, which is also known as Pearson's R, who developed Galton's work by introducing inter alia the ideas of multiple, partial, biserial and other kind of correlation coefficients. Now, and as well as giving the modern name to many other statistical ideas such as mode, kurtosis and so on. These are the Carl Pearson's ideas. Half of the statistics is developed by Carl Pearson, more or less. Standard deviation and homo and heteroscedasticity, etc. Pearson and his students' techniques provide the formal tools with which empirical hypothesis about the relation between social variables, relationship between which otherwise could only be investigated in an informal way, as in the work of 19th century moral statistician and as exemplified by Durkheim's suicide. Durkheim never used any statistics but still, you see, it is a marvelous book. In Durkheim's suicide, if you see this, he gives only data, information. He collected the information about suicide taking place in various European states, and then he analyzes it by religion, by kind of whether these people belong to minority community or majority, and so on and so forth. And then he gives a fascinating kind of theoretical argument of suicide, that why suicide happens, and what are the four different categories of suicide that happens in society. However, what is interesting is, though these statistical advances were made in Britain, they were all British, eugenists were also, and explanatory random social surveys of the kind whose description now forms the core of many sociological research method tests did not become routine in Britain until after the Second World War. Britain didn't practice this. When they gained respectability from their widespread use in America. Basically, the survey research was popularized in the United States. not in Britain. The British developed these statistical techniques. The Carl Pearson and all these people, Gavin and all these people, they were British. In the early 20th century, the largely British developments in multivariate and inductive statistics that provide the rationale for this type of survey were tainted by that association with eugenics movement. As I said, that people then gradually started condemning this. They fall into disrepute because these techniques were associated with eugenic movement. So the techniques also fall into disrepute. So which was opposed by those responsible for the institutionalization of academic sociology. L.T. Bose, you know, you may have heard his name. For example, was appointed the first British chair of sociology in 1907 in London School of Economics, objected strongly to attempts by the eugenists to reduce the science of society to part of the science of biology. He said that this was his objection. He said science of society cannot be a part of science of biology. In America, by contrast, the men who headed the new sociology departments that were founded during the rapid expansion of universities at the end of 20th century realized that academic acceptability depended upon leaving behind the spirit of liberal reformism that had inspired the creation of their departments and demonstrating instead that their discipline was scientific. See the positivistic trend coming. That they were trying to say that the universities were, as you know, that universities were considered as after it kind of the control of the church was kind of gradually declined. Like Oxford and, as you know, Oxford and Cambridge, they were basically under the control of church. Declined. The universities were considered as a liberal kind of influence. That this is where all kind of knowledge is possible. You can say what you like and so on. So they wanted to show that this is the practice that they are adopting is a kind of a scientific practice. So this was particularly the case with Franklin Giddings, not Giddens, Giddings, Giddings, who held the chair at Columbia University from 1894. He was influenced by Bose, Spencer, Durkheim, and Pearson, and most notably by Mill. In his writing, he argued for sociology that closely followed Mill's method, and he gave statistical analysis of precisely measured social facts a central place in science. Under his leadership, Columbia became the center for training in the rigorous application of quantitative methods in sociological history. So this was started in Columbia. The students such as Oakburn, I don't know sociology, or Stuart Chapin were instrumental in professionalizing American sociology around survey research and statistics of all types. Statistics were used to provide both the methods of inquiry to legitimize the scientific status of sociology and the standards of scholarship to exclude the propagators of unsystematic generalities in the 19th century tradition of social philosophy. So what they were saying is, or what their approach was, that they were saying that the liberal social philosophy, through which there is a root of sociology, that liberal social philosophy was in some way generalizing certain things which are unsystematic. So, in terms of social service and in quantitative analysis, they are systematizing the discipline, they are systematizing this branch of knowledge and doing a systematic analysis of making certain generalizations. So, the professionalism reached a peak in the studies of American Army under the direction of Samuel Stupar. You know this. This is a famous book. Who was a student of Oak Burns, who had worked with Pearson and Fisher. Fisher is another famous statistician. The results were published in 4 volumes, of which 2 volumes, American Soldier, is the best known. That is the best, the huge kind of quantitative analysis. The Professor Singh was talking about reference group theory. This appeared first in the American Soldier. American Soldier is taken to be a landmark in the quantitative statistical analysis. Big survey producing kind of certain empirical generalization. Samuel Stupar, this was prescribed in our when we used to study sociology or our universities. So the natural science of society, these new professionals maintained would be value neutral if emotion and prejudice were disciplined by the dispassionate and meticulous application of quantitative technique to objective kind of numerical data. So you see that value neutrality here comes as a major kind of object of knowledge, that to know what is value neutrality. I can say, let us say I make some generalization, but you say that you are making this generalization or you are propagating this because by religion you are so and so, or you are a Bengali, that is why you are doing this, or this is because of Bengali culture. So I am not value neutral. I have certain values. Out of those values I am propagating. Now why I should call this knowledge? So knowledge should be value neutral. So how can you have value neutral? Then you say that, well, I have collected information, I have done statistical analysis. These are all objective. The information I didn't generate this information. The information I got is. But then again there can be questions raised about this method and this information and so on. How you collect. There are other finer points of this. Like for instance, people say that your presence, let us say that you go to a village and you are from this Delhi and you are dressed in a certain fashion and you talk in certain ways and that kind of thing. Your presence there would make a difference, will already influence the data you collect. So, in spite of you want to be value neutral, you cannot be value neutral. Or there are other kind of arguments like the way you speak, the way you ask questions, that elicit certain kind of responses. If there was somebody else and he or she had asked certain questions, then anyway, these are the final kind of question of fieldwork which any fieldwork analysis would tell you. We can discuss this also during the question hour, but let me I'm coming to the end of this, not much left. So basically this was the object, that it is value neutral. It is value neutral. Now, so this is objective knowledge. This is not a subjective kind of knowledge. But the aspiration that quantitative techniques would provide the foundation of value-free science of society has constantly failed. Because the use of quantitative techniques in social inquiry and with it the notion of positivism that it carries, namely a theory of knowledge according to which the natural science of sociology consists of the collection and statistical analysis of quantitative data about society, have never been without controversy. All types of statistics have been challenged from a wide variety of standpoints that range from technical views to epistemological requirements. There are epistemological theoretic problems with this. The descriptive adequacy of social statistics, especially official statistics gathered by government agencies, has been found wanting. As you know, that no one believes government statistics. People say that, well, these are manipulated, you want to propagate your own success, that is why you know. So, has been found wanting because of measurement errors, which for some pose technical issues of estimating validity and reliability, but for others, especially sociologists, influenced by ordinary language philosophy, undermine the empiricist conception of language upon which quantitative description is said to rely. This is a technical philosophical point. What I am trying to say is that there is a philosophy, Wittgenstein, for instance, is called ordinary language philosophy. Ordinary language philosophy says that the philosophical problems arise because there are problems in the ordinary language. If you solve the language kind of a problem, then you can solve the philosophical problem. Actually, there are no philosophical problems. The problem is problem of language. So this was Wittgenstein's view in philosophical investigations, books. Now people say that this fieldwork and this data is also the kind of categories that emerge from this exercise, this empirical exercise that we call survey or fieldwork and so on, is also a problem of ordinary language. If there are ordinary language philosophical problems, and if these wouldn't have existed if there were not problems like this. So if you analyze the language in which the research was conducted, analyze the questions through which the information was collected, you would have the other kind of image or picture, or you could have, one could say that these are not reliable kind of thing, as you claim that it is. The appropriateness of multivariate statistics has been questioned because until 1950s, it was only for interval level data. That is the ratio. Interval level data means the data which is where you can not only say it is more than this, but it is how much more than this. Like age. Like I am 60 years old, you are 30 years. So you can say that I am older than you and I am twice older than you. But let us say that teacher, like professor and a lecturer, you can say that professor is higher than lecturer, but you cannot say professor is twice higher than lecturer. So these are the, first is the interval level data. Second is the ordinal level data. We will talk about this in the second page. So in the regression analysis, originally it was used for interval level data that measures the covariations data. Whereas it was argued most sociological data are ordinal, and some maintain that the question has been answered by technical development, both in scaling, ordinal data and mapping and so on. What is basically argued is that in sociology we don't have, so like in economics, in sociology we do not have so many interval level data. Sociology we talk about the gender, the oppositional classification, caste, and so on and so forth. These data are not interval level data. Here we are only ordinal or nominal kind of data. So how can we do these statistical techniques? The answer to that is that there are techniques that have been developed to handle these kind of data. We'll discuss that in the techniques part in the second lecture. So I'm not going. I am here only concentrating on the ideological part of it.